All right, hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're looking at something that's pretty relatable, I think, but also a bit out there. What happens when you and your partner are living in different time zones? Not literally, of course, but because of work. In this case, the world of cryptocurrency. We found this Reddit thread, and wow, it's a real roller coaster.
It is, yeah. It really seems to capture a lot of the anxieties people are feeling right now. Like, what even counts as a real job anymore? And how do you handle these, like, totally opposite schedules as a couple? And is it worth all the strain on the relationship if there's a chance of getting rich?
It's so true. And in this case, the person who posted the OP, she's definitely at her wit's end with this whole thing. Her boyfriend sleeps from like 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. Basically, he's like a super night owl because of all the crypto trading he's doing.
Yeah, you can just feel how tense it is in her post. She even says it feels like they're barely living in the same universe anymore, let alone the same relationship.
Totally. And it's not even just about being lonely. There's also this worry about the money side of things. She doesn't really get crypto. So she's not sure he's got a steady income or if this is all just a risky gamble.
That financial anxiety makes total sense, especially with how divided everyone is about crypto. Some people in the comments are straight up calling it a scam, while others are like, this is the future, you got to get on board.
It's wild, right? It's almost like you're seeing this generational clash happening. The folks who believe in the traditional 9 to 5 versus those who are all about the hustle of the digital age. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is.
Yeah, and that's where that whole crypto bro stereotype comes in. Some of the comments were really harsh, painting this picture of a guy who's totally detached, only cares about making a quick buck, and just ignores his partner's needs.
Ouch. Yeah, some people went there for sure. But there were also some comments that seemed more balanced. Like one person pointed out that sometimes trading crypto does mean keeping weird hours. You have to be in sync with the global markets.
That's true. It's kind of like the stock market, but way faster. So, to a certain extent, you have to adjust your schedule. You got to be active when the market is.
Okay, that makes sense. But even if it's a legit way to make money, what does that do to your relationship if your schedules are completely opposite? The comments were split on that too. Some people said it would be a total disaster, but others said they made it work.
It seems like the key takeaway there is that open communication is absolutely crucial. Some people talked about different strategies they used, like scheduling date nights, even if it meant one person staying up late or waking up early, and some even said having separate bedrooms helped. It sounds kind of weird, but it let them keep their own sleep schedules without one person sleep messing with the others.
So basically, there's no magic solution. It really depends on the couple and how much they're willing to adapt.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the whole financial side of things either. The OP mentioned she wasn't sure how stable his crypto earnings really were, which just adds another layer of stress to the whole situation.
Right? It's hard to feel secure in a relationship when you're worried about money, especially if you don't really understand your partner's work or how much they're actually making.
A lot of people in the comments were encouraging her to just talk to him openly about finances. Like, what are their goals as a couple? How does crypto fit into their long-term plans? And are there any backup plans if things go wrong?
Being transparent is so important. It's not about judging his career choices. It's about building trust and making sure they're both on the same page financially.
Exactly. And if she feels left out of the whole crypto world, maybe he could explain some things to her, even just the basics. That could really help with her anxiety.
It's like knowledge is power, right? The more she understands, the less scary and unpredictable it all seems.
Now, remember how we talked about the possibility of delayed sleep phase disorder?
Yeah, where his sleep schedule could actually be medical, not just a lifestyle choice.
Right. If that turns out to be the case, it adds a whole other dimension to their conversations. They might need to look into things like therapy or medication to help regulate his sleep cycle.
Wow, it's amazing how much this one Reddit post brought up. Relationship dynamics, money worries, potential medical conditions. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And we're not even done yet, because even with all these factors, ultimately, the decision is up to the OP. What does she want, and is this relationship giving her what she needs? That's what we'll explore in part 2 of this deep dive. So we left off talking about the OP and how she's feeling about all of this. She actually described her boyfriend's schedule as making her sick, which is pretty intense, you
Yeah,
know?
she's definitely feeling isolated and resentful too. It's like there's ships passing in the night, except instead of the ocean, it's their apartment.
It's a good analogy. And it's not just about missing movie nights or dinners together, this kind of chronic schedule misalignment. It can really eat away at the foundation of a relationship.
Absolutely. How do you even build intimacy and connection when you're barely awake at the same times, it makes sense that she'd be feeling lonely and starting to question the whole relationship.
You see a lot of that in the comments. Some people were sharing their own stories about how mismatched schedules led to breakups. They talked about feeling like they were living separate lives, constant arguments, and eventually they just drifted apart.
That's so sad to hear. But there were also some couples who said they made it work. What were some of their secrets?
Communication was a big one. They really stressed how important it is to talk openly about their needs, their anxieties, their expectations, and not just once, but regularly checking in and adapting as needed.
That makes sense. Like, even if you can't physically be together all the time, you can still be emotionally connected through honest conversations.
Exactly. And some couples got creative with their schedules. They mentioned things like having designated date nights, even if it meant one of them had to stay up late or wake up super early to make it happen.
That's really sweet, putting in that effort to have quality time together.
For sure. And some people actually found that having separate bedrooms helped, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, I guess, but it let them each keep their own sleep schedule without one person's sleep messing with the others.
So there's no one right answer. It depends on what that particular couple needs and how much they're willing to adapt.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the money side of things either. The OP mentioned that she wasn't sure how stable his crypto earnings really were, which adds another layer of stress to the whole situation.
It's true. It's tough to feel secure in a relationship when you're worried about money, especially when you don't understand your partner's work or how much they're making.
A lot of the comments were encouraging her to have a conversation with him about their finances. Talk about their goals as a couple, how crypto fits into their long-term plans, and if they have any backup plans in place if things go wrong.
Yeah, transparency is so important. It's not about judging his job or anything. It's about building trust and making sure they're both on the same page financially.
Absolutely. And if she's feeling kind of left out of the whole crypto world, maybe he could try to teach her a little about it, explain some of the basics that might help with her anxiety.
It's like they say, knowledge is power. The more she understands, the less scary and unpredictable it'll feel.
Right. Now, remember how you were talking about the possibility of delayed sleep phase disorder?
Yeah, the thing where his sleep schedule might actually be a medical condition, not just him choosing to stay up late.
Exactly. Well, if that turns out to be the case, it changes the conversation. They might need to think about therapy or medication, to help regulate his sleep cycle.
This is so interesting. It's amazing how much we're finding in this one Reddit post. Relationship stuff, money worries, potential medical conditions. There's just so much to think about.
It really is a lot to unpack, and we're not even done yet. Because even with all these factors, the ultimate decision comes down to the OP. What does she want? And is this relationship giving her what she needs? We'll dig into that in the final part of this deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about the challenges and some possible solutions, even looked at things from a medical perspective. But now I think it's time to get down to the real question here. What should the OP actually do about this whole situation?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really all comes down to her own needs and priorities. And that's where things get tricky, because sometimes, even if you're communicating well and trying to compromise, the relationship just isn't a good fit anymore.
That's so true. It's easy to get caught up in trying to fix things, but sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice, even if it hurts.
Exactly. So let's imagine we're in the OP's shoes for a minute. If you were her, what would be your non-negotiables in this relationship? What are those core values that you just can't compromise on?
That's a good question. For me, I think feeling like a priority would be huge. If my partner was constantly choosing work over spending time with me, I'd definitely start to feel unimportant.
I get that. And it sounds like the OP is feeling something similar. Remember she said it feels like they barely exist in the same universe anymore.
Right, exactly. And besides feeling like a priority, I'd also need to feel respected. Like, my partner takes my feelings and concerns seriously, even if they don't fully understand them.
Respect is essential in any relationship, but it's especially important when you have different views on things like work, finances, or in this case, sleep schedules.
So if the OP has tried to communicate her needs, but her boyfriend is still dismissive or unwilling to compromise, that's got to be a major red flag.
It could be. It might mean their values are just too different, or that he's not really prioritizing her well-being.
And if that's the case, she might have to consider walking away, even if it's hard.
It's never easy to end a relationship, but sometimes it's the bravest and kindest thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, it's like choosing your own happiness and choosing your own well-being over staying in a situation that's not working anymore.
Exactly. And, even if she does decide to give it another try, there are still some important things to remember.
Like what
Well, self-care is crucial. She needs to make sure she's taking care of her own mental and emotional health, no matter what happens with the relationship.
That's a good point. So things like setting boundaries, making time for things she enjoys, and surrounding herself with supportive people.
Exactly. It's all about remembering her own worth and value, especially when things feel uncertain.
Because at the end of the day, she can't control what her boyfriend chooses to do. He's the only one who can decide if he's willing to change his sleep schedule, or prioritize the relationship, or even seek help for any potential medical issues.
That's right. Her power lies in how she chooses to respond to the situation. That means taking care of herself, setting boundaries, and making choices that align with her own happiness and well-being.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to relationships and different lifestyles.
Absolutely. Every situation is unique, and it's up to each person to figure out what they're willing to tolerate, what they need to feel loved and respected, and ultimately what's going to be best for their own journey.
I love that. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone to like this video and subscribe to Shauna Polich on YouTube for more deep dives like this. And hey, if this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Share them with us on social media using the hashtag Voices of the Soul.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and until next time, remember, you have the power to create a life that feels good, a life that truly honors your needs and values. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep choosing yourself.